something we can share together.
Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. We are live in Parkersburg, West Virginia with Punished for Protecting. And right now I have Judy Lee Masters with me from
Webster Springs, West Virginia.
Webster Springs, West Virginia. She's actually the mother of our chapter leader for West Virginia, Richard Provost, and she has her story to tell today. Some ordeal, huh?
It's been yes it has. It's been going on for 14 years, back and forth in court. It's like they were just sweeping everything under the rug. They did everything they could to try to get stuff on Richard. Mm-hmm. They didn't go to who they needed to go to, who needed to be investigated. They, instead of doing their job, they were trying to get my son on everything they could. Mm-hmm. They let his mother get by with abusing that little boy. Mm-hmm. We would get him, and he would have bruises on him from his waist down the back of his legs. Mm-hmm. We had pictures, and the CPS wanted to see them, and the ones that showed the bruises came up missing. They were, and what we did get, they were photoshopped.
So they photoshopped them to take the
bruises out. And also you could tell with the position. Well, my dad, Richard's grandfather, was holding in the emergency room. And Jordan, the way he was holding him, and when we got the pictures back, had him at a whole different angle where you couldn't even see where the bruises were.
I guess we have somebody else that wants to be interviewed. Sorry.
But it's just been ongoing for 14 years.
It's an unbelievable, and I've seen, some of this, I've seen the evidence of all of this, and I've actually seen so far how they're trying to hide this evidence. I'm not going to get too much into what we're doing on our end.
Right. They hide it, and we go to court. They wouldn't listen. Richard didn't have a chance. Not a chance. And I do believe they already made their decision of what they were going to do before we even got into court.
Yeah, it's very typical.
And it was heartbreaking seeing what that little boy went through. And he was less than a year old. Richard got temporary custody. He was probably a year and a half when he got full custody. But in between, it started out with visits with CPS.
Right. She
would come. They would do a urine test on her. She would have it. Sometimes she wouldn't even show up.
Right.
And no matter what we did, reported, nothing was ever done.
And it never ends.
Never done.
That's statewide. That's statewide.
And here Richard
they only go after.
You couldn't ask for a better father, and they were dragging him through the mud. 3 counts against her. Right. And they did nothing.
So, because she spent significant time in prison,
She didn't spend, less than a year?
Less than a year. For drug trafficking.
Drug trafficking.
Yeah.
And she got out.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's unbelievable. And it's heartbreaking when you, even as a grandparent, that you see what's going on.
Right. And having to watch it.
And having to watch it. And the legal system will not do what they need to do. And I get choked up now. It breaks my heart.
I know.
It breaks my heart.
I know the feeling too well. And I see it every day with so many people.
And Jordan has suffered. It has affected him in a lot of ways.
How old is Jordan now?
He's 14 now.
So he's been basically dealing with this his whole young life.
His whole life.
Yeah.
Literally from the time, I'd say, as far as I know, that it started when he was 3 months.
Yeah. And thankfully he has the custody of the child. But she's still getting visits which don't, when I look at the orders that are been placed out, it doesn't make sense that she has any, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever that she has
I always understand
access.
If they signed over their parents' rights, then how do they get
enforce
visitations.
Right. It's
I don't understand that. I thought once you signed your parents' rights, that was it. No communication.
Right.
So
Right, and that's a plus and a minus because there's children there's parents who under duress been forced to sign away their rights that shouldn't have,
mhm,
and then in a case like this where it's a complete and utter safety measure, now she's getting these visitations that
mhm.
don't make any sense at all.
No,
Don't make any sense at
it
all.
doesn't. And these laws have to be changed
Mhm.
for the welfare of these kids
Mhm.
that are suffering.
Mhm.
And so much goes on behind closed doors. You don't know you don't know what's going on with these poor kids.
Now you've been able to be in the courtroom and witness some of what was going on in the court, or what happens here in West Virginia. And actually, mind you, for the sake of the audience, what court and county was this all
Wood
taken?
County.
Wood County, West Virginia, where we are right now, actually.
And it's like Richard having evidence.
Right.
Even the judge
Mhm.
would not look at it.
That's so typical.
They would not look at it, and it was almost like they were looking at him like he's a joke.
Mhm.
They're the joke.
No, there's no question.
They're the joke.
First, and the thing is, one of the things that we've discovered is that our laws are really great, actually. They're not following them.
No.
But even just common sense, they don't even follow. You know,
No,
the laws. So.
You wonder what's going on up here with them.
Mhm.
What about these innocent children?
Mhm.
And the court, they're letting them get by with it.
Mhm.
And it's been,
Now, you
It's-
had told me about your husband and what does he do for a living, or what
Well,
did he do before he retired?
before he retired, he was a counselor for juvenile detention
Mhm.
in Parkersburg.
Mhm. And what happened with him in the court trying to get in? Tell America
They,
this amazing story.
He had gone with Richard,
Mhm.
taken him to court, and he went in with Richard. And of course, they started whispering between each other. They made him leave.
So he wanted to come in to
He
sit,
wanted to
come in and be a witness.
Yeah,
on the stand,
and they wouldn't let him in.
and they would not let him
They
in.
would not let him in. They voted him out.
So, and this is a very different procedure. Obviously, it seems to me that West Virginia, just from some of the cases that I'm hearing, because I see corruption all over the place.
Right.
And I sometimes I'm like, wow, this state is worse. Wow, this state is worse. You just can't really peg them, but this state is really,
Oh,
really bad.
it is.
But I'm in awe over when you told me that they voted him out.
Mhm.
How could they vote him out when they didn't vote him in the first place? It doesn't even.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any.
They
logical,
didn't want him in. They didn't want him in there.
Right. They just didn't want him.
No, they
So
didn't
he could have actually been deemed an expert because of his work background.
25 years.
Yeah, and they don't even allow him in.
They
what's
wouldn't
it?
allow him in.
That's just unbelievable. Absolutely amazing.
It is. It
Absolutely
is.
amazing. So now we have a faulty order.
Mhm.
We have an order that's forcing Richard to have to send your grandson
Right.
to the mother how often?
Every other weekend.
Every other weekend. Now this is a sleepover on top of it, when
Right.
there's been all sorts of abuse,
Yes.
proven abuse, because I read it, I saw it, it was
Yeah.
clear cut.
Right.
And CPS fails and drops the ball. The judge fails and drops the ball, and then twists the order.
Mhm.
The order makes no sense at all.
No.
It makes absolutely no sense. Any lawyer that has looked at it and then will look at it, this does not make any sense. It's an order stamped by a judge that makes absolutely no
No.
sense at all.
No sense at all.
And where does that leave your family right now? And
Well, right now with everything that's going on, we feel a lot better about
because of
because with what's going on, and I pray to God every day that there's some reform, and this is the way I feel. People need to get their just dues. They need what's coming to them. I mean, I'm very.
we're all for that, and that's what we're doing right now. We're getting
Right.
the process of the doing just dues.
Yeah,
So-
they're gonna get their just
Mhm.
dues. I mean, they will.
Yeah, they will.
They will.
They will. They definitely will. I
Yes.
appreciate your story.
Thank you.
Thank you for telling it. I know it's hard because I know I can interview a million people and I get choked up.
I
I get
get
upset.
choked up. Anything about kids, I can't
Mhm.
stand it.
Yeah, and when you talk about your own, I know because it's amazing. I can tell other people's stories. I can tell my story about what's happening now,
Mhm.
and it's good, and you feel good about it. When you start bringing up what happened back here,
Mhm.
you lose it, and I know how
Yeah,
hard
you
it is.
do, because now it's better than it was 14 years ago.
Right.
But something has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be done now.
Mm-hmm. And the damages that it does to children long term and into
It
adulthood
is, and
that could have been prevented.
it could have been. It never would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids suffer.
Mm-hmm.
they're, you know, they have emotional suffering. And
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
No, it's absolutely and utterly wrong. And I don't want to reform it. I want to abolish it completely.
Amen.
There's
Yes.
you can't reform this. This is
No, you need to abolish it.
abolish, arrest, jail them.
Amen.
That's it.
Yes.
There's nothing else left. But thank you for your story. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back on with the next story. Thank you. Okay, we are back. And I have now with me Richard Provost, who's also the chapter leader here for West Virginia, one of our chapter leaders here. And we're just going to continue with the story that we just had regarding what his mother just got done saying. Rich, hi, welcome. So we want to talk.
I've never mentioned.
So we want to talk a little bit about, kind of add on to the story that your mother just told. What happened with the mother? Jail. We want to talk about jail, why she was in jail, you know, what happened in court, and how these things were overlooked. I didn't understand it.
Like 2012, 2014, or the whole.
Well, what you just got done saying regarding why she was in jail, what she admitted to,
Oh,
and how she
was.
has visits to your son.
Yeah, she was arrested. I'm not even sure exact date because there's conflicting articles online. One article states that she was arrested and she was selling, distributing crack cocaine, various amounts of cocaine, heroin, and oxycodone, which she was making like $1,500 a week. So, yeah.
And then what was the aiding and abetting part?
Oh, yeah, so I'll go back into court. Well, like I said, they wanted me to prove why she was in prison. I was like, well, that's not my job. And so, you know.
So you're in court.
We're in
and
court.
Where is she?
She's on closed circuit TV. I call it live pay-per-view.
Okay, and she's in closed circuit TV. Why though? Is she? Where is she at this time?
At this time, I don't know because
Why do they have her on closed circuit TV?
Because she was in prison, but
oh, that's what I wanted to get to.
But
So she was in prison at that moment.
But when I looked up, she was in Alderson prison, and this is what's bizarre. She was in Alderson prison. At the same time, she was in Baltimore CCM. She was sentenced the same day and released the same day at both the prison and a correctional facility. Then the Baltimore CCM, it doesn't even come up anymore. And I don't think Alderson does it either. Somebody's erasing her records. But yeah, so we're in court. They wanted me to prove why she was, you know, in prison. And I'm sitting there, you know. So I cross-examined her. And I said, did you aid and abet, whatever. And she's like, oh, yeah, I did that. You know.
So wait, you're in the trial.
Yeah.
You got to cross-examine her.
Yeah.
You asked her if she aided and abetted.
Yeah, I asked her if she aided and abetting, fleeing the scene of a crime, a stabbing, cleaning blood out of her car.
Okay, stabbing and cleaning blood out of a car.
Yes.
And she denies this or she agrees?
She admits to it.
She admits to this.
Yes.
And this is the same judge that has produced these, stamped these, and signed these orders that you have
Yeah, well,
for your
Judge,
custody.
matter of fact, we're right down in the heart of corruption.
I know, we're right across the street from the court.
Yeah,
Because when I go somewhere, I make sure I pick the right spot. Go ahead.
yeah, that's a pretty good spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's been Judge Tallman, and then there was family court, then there was Reed. Then he recuses himself next to the last hearing of 2008, which my mom's a witness to this. He found her in charge with 3 counts of child abuse and neglect.
So he did find her with 3 counts of child abuse and neglect.
Yeah. And
Because one of the orders that I saw actually says on it, that basically they made it like she did a trial period and she's all better now. Do you recall her doing any kind of trial period? Did she get help? Did she go to counseling? Did she
No.
Did she take anger management? Did she take parenting classes? Did she pass anything?
No, CPS reports around 2005, whenever she started taking it. See, the case was dismissed in 2006, which doesn't make any sense. And so they continued it. They continued for Kangaroo to get her off. But yeah, she did take an improvement period, which later that I found that Wood County CPS withheld that she missed and failed drug tests.
So that was during an improvement period. She missed and failed drug tests.
Yes.
Still leading us to now that she's signed off her rights, terminated like your mom said,
Mm-hmm.
yet right now your child is with her on a visit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mind blown.
Yeah, so I mean, they basically, you know, ignored his abuse, and I had to sit there. There's nothing I could do about it, and so yeah. So I mean, there were several witnesses to it. Camden Clark covered it up.
Just for the audience, say Camden Clark is the hospital here in Parkersburg.
Yeah, they were at 2005 when this started. Well, the last time, the whole time it's even documented. Now it's reverted into Camden Clark. They helped cover up his case. My mother was there. They documented all this stuff. So when the first hearing, they left it in family court. West Virginia, once abuse is found, it automatically goes to circuit court. It doesn't stay in family court. Well, they left it in family court for I don't know how long. So this RN is supposed to testify, and he didn't show up, and Judge Reed's like, go get him. You could hear this. You could hear my mom was there. He's like, they had to send down Parkersburg police to get him, and you could hear him coming up, oh, I'd rather go to jail. I'd rather go to jail. I hate my job. And he sits down on the stand. Now, my God, this is a week. This was like a little bit over a week when he documented all the bruises and stuff. He sits down. Judge Reed asks him something. He looks at me and he says, I've never seen him before. Jordan Provost, never heard that name. I'm like,
meanwhile, you know this very clearly not to be true. He knows your son.
Well, yeah, Judge Reed is, he should have been prosecuted over it, and they ignored it. I mean, the entire hearing for 2005, 2008, perjured all over the stand, given 3 or 4 stories, flipped it around on me, trying to get me on anything like they did 2012, 2014. But yeah, it's I ain't gonna say anything. It's gonna get me in trouble, but.
Unbelievable. I mean, the story is just absolutely unbelievable.
So, well, you've seen it. They're not going to release any of that.
Right now, we're in process of getting release of records, and West Virginia is being very sneaky about it. But we'll leave it at that because we're not going to get into more details about what we're doing behind the scenes. But that'll be next episode. So, all right. Well, thank you, Richard, thank you for working for us. And thank you for your hard work, and thank you for your story. We appreciate it. Okay. And we'll be back after this short break. Thank you, guys. Well, we're back, part 3. Right now, I have 2 guests on my show, Anna Prophet and Linda Mount, and this is a story out of Athens, Ohio. Welcome, and thank you for being here today. Thank you, guys. Thanks for driving over. So I'm going to start with you, Linda, if it's okay. If you want to just tell the audience. This is about your grandchild?
Yes.
And what has happened. Give a little basis to the story.
Okay. I have been fighting for my grandchildren for almost 2 years. I keep getting denied. CPS keeps denying me. I have done everything possible. I went through every steps they told me to do, but in the beginning they told me I couldn't have the boys because I didn't have a place of my own. So I went and got a place of my own. The first place belonged to my nephew. My nephew was going to let me live there. No, not charge me nothing. All I had to do was worry about paying my utilities to help me out. They denied it because it wasn't my place, it was my nephew's.
Well, let's hold it right from that particular portion. So this is because of your daughter, though.
Yes.
And we're going to go into that a little bit more to get them up to where we are now. But when this incident took place, you wanted to get custody of your grandsons. They are how old? Or at the time they were?
Jace was 15 months old, and Colton, it was 2.5 years old.
So when they say not a place of your own, obviously you were living somewhere. Where were you living?
Well, I retired.
Right.
And I was planning on going to Florida, and then all this took place.
Right.
And I was staying with my daughter, my other daughter, until all this settled down or what went on, and I was trying to get my grandchildren out of the system.
Okay. So now, so you decided to go now so now you stopped your plans so that you can protect your own grandchildren and keep them in the family.
Yes.
Versus foster care and all the other nonsense.
And I didn't have a place of my own. I was living with my granddaughter, or with my daughter.
Right.
And meanwhile, fighting for my grandkids and to get them out of the system. Mm-hmm. And I went and talked to my nephew because I know he had that place, and he was letting me have it to help me out to get the boys
so
out
now,
of the
what
system.
was this place like that he?
Oh, it was beautiful.
Beautiful place, and
Yeah.
they would have had nice rooms
Oh, yeah.
and clean.
Oh, yeah.
They had a problem with that too.
Yes.
So foster care to them is better than living with family, living
CPS,
with a
they
loving
approved
grandmother.
it all. They approved it all. It was all clean enough. Everything passed. It wasn't mine.
It wasn't yours.
It wasn't
And is
mine.
that somewhere in the handbook? It has to be
Yeah.
yours. I mean, you were going to be the one residing there. You had, I mean,
I didn't
bizarre.
understand it either because it would have helped me out a lot because.
just any excuse that they can find.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't like you were saying that. It wasn't like you were going against what they were saying regarding your daughter, because you were actually in agreement with the situation with your daughter, and that was something that you didn't feel was safe for the grandchildren either. Is that right?
Well, my daughter was fed up with all of it, and she pled guilty.
Okay.
She
so
took
it wasn't
the plea.
something. So she didn't do anything wrong. I don't recall what happened with your daughter exactly, that she lost the children in the first place.
She got accused of child abuse.
She got accused of
Yes.
child abuse. Okay. So has she seen them at all in this time span, or
Well, yeah, she had visitations up till she got
okay.
incarcerated.
Okay, okay. It's just unbelievable. And this is Athens CPS and
Yes.
Athens Court.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about, and this is the aunt, correct?
Yes.
You're the aunt, and so Anna's the aunt, and this is the grandmother of the two boys. So I'd like to hear some of your story as well. But tell me about some of the things. And have you sat in court while any of this has occurred, or?
Yes, I have.
You have. So you've witnessed what goes on in the courtroom there, the Circus Act
Yes.
that goes on. What are some of the things that have happened in the court regarding bringing in evidence, finding out about the abuse? Was there abuse? Was there really not abuse? You know, all this damage that's been done to your family. You want to go? Yeah. Did you want to talk a little bit?
Well, as the proceedings was going on, the judge, he was sitting up there and he was turned sort of sideways, and we could see him dozing off.
Mm-hmm.
But
So he's nodding off. You're having court, and he's literally nodding off, falling asleep.
well, I assume that's what he's doing. His head would go down and then he'd come back up.
Really? Oh my goodness. Okay. So how would you guys like it if I'm in the middle of doing an interview with you and I just start to fall asleep like that?
Yeah, really.
Wow.
I don't know how he was able to make a decision.
I don't know.
And deny me custody
Unbelievable.
Yes.
It's just.
when he really don't know what was going on when he was up there dozing off.
And what were you feeling while you're seeing this judge falling asleep during the proceeding?
I didn't feel that he was paying enough attention at all
Yeah.
to the hearing. But what I wanted to get back on is Linda had mentioned about her daughter getting incarcerated. She took the plea because the boyfriend had told both of the kids
Mhm.
that they were going to spend how many years in prison?
6 to 8 years. Unless somebody came up and said, what happened to Jace?
So let's go back. Did this really? And forgive me because I don't know the part about your daughter. I know part about you with wanting to get the custody and so on and so forth, and you doing nothing wrong. What exactly was the accusation, and what came out of that? I mean, now I know that they had to take this plea, which was ridiculous. But what actually was the accusation?
My daughter was being accused of child abuse.
Okay.
What had happened was that the child had climbed up on the couch,
Mm-hmm.
and the mother was in the kitchen cooking. Well, when she looked, she knew that the little boy was going to fall, so she took off running.
Yeah,
Okay.
she heard it, went there to get Jace, and Jace, he done hit the floor. So she picks him up and makes sure he's okay. She even sat down on the couch with him, and he cried like any child would have cried if they fell.
Mhm.
And he wanted down to go play, and she let him down and had no idea that that baby broke his arms. Both arms was broke.
Both
He went-
arms.
Yes.
And he was 15 months. At this
15
time.
months old.
And the other boy was
Colton
Colton was.
was 2.5 at the
And he
time.
was fine. There was nothing wrong with
Yes.
Colton. And your daughter had nothing prior on her record or anything like that.
No,
Nothing
never.
clean record.
No.
So now the arms are broken. And when does 911 get called? Like shortly after, or
No, see, Jason didn't act like he was hurt.
okay,
So he got
So he
down, started
stopped
playing and
crying.
all that, yeah.
went back to doing normal routine.
And so she didn't do nothing, and The next day, she noticed his arms was swollen.
Okay, both arms.
Both arms was swollen.
But no crying, no pain, no.
No, she said he wasn't crying, wasn't showing no pain.
Okay.
So she calls her boyfriend at work and tells him, JC's arms are swollen, and can you go ahead and come home so we can go ahead and take him to the emergency room?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I can't get nobody to cover for me, so you're going to have to wait.
Okay, so she didn't have a car.
No, she didn't have a vehicle. Mine was broke down at the time.
Okay.
And so when he got home, she gets the car, she takes him to the emergency room, and then
Okay.
that's when they said that
They went off on it.
it was spiral breaks, and they send him to Children's Hospital in Columbus.
Okay.
Children's Hospital in Columbus does a full body scan and says, well, they didn't tell her nothing. That's when they called CPS and a detective in.
Mm-hmm.
And they came in after hours of waiting and wondering what was going on.
Mm-hmm. Is she still with the child at this point in time, or
Yeah.
did they separate her? Okay.
No, she was still with the child, correct till the time they come and removed them.
Okay. So they removed him from the hospital.
Yes.
And when was this exactly? The date and time, or the date?
November the 13th, 2015.
So we're talking a long time
Yes.
that this has been happening.
That'd be 2 years.
Wow. So they accused her now of child abuse.
Yes.
Did they arrest her on the spot or shortly
No,
after?
no, she didn't
No
get
arrest
arrested.
whatsoever.
No.
Never, not arrested at all from this.
No.
Took the child.
Took the children.
She's
yeah.
devastated.
Took both children.
Took both children.
Yeah, both of them screaming and hollering, carrying on,
I know,
and
the trauma-
hanging on to her.
Yeah, the trauma alone is
Yeah.
utter abuse.
And she calls and tells me, so I hurry up and go to the CPS to talk with them, have an interview to get the boys, because I didn't
Of
want them in
course.
the system. I wanted
Which
them
is
all.
the legal thing, the legal
Yeah.
process.
And they
Yeah.
they denied me and said that they didn't know what happened to Jace. And since I was around him, they couldn't let me have him at the time.
Unbelievable.
So
So now they go. Now are they together or separated in foster care?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know where they're at or nothing.
So whenever your daughter did get visitation at that point, she did get some visitation, right? She visited them
She got
together.
visitation script I think like a month before she got sent to prison.
Okay.
And they had what they called a farewell party for her.
They call it a farewell party.
Yeah, farewell party, yeah.
This is CPS does this?
Yes.
In Athens, Ohio.
Yes.
They do a farewell party
Yes.
to the parent.
Yeah.
They actually do this.
Mhm.
And what does this consist of? This farewell party? You don't know.
A little party, like.
With the mother present.
Yeah, with the mother present there, a little party for them. Yeah, yeah, it's called a farewell party.
And where are the children? Are they a
Right
part-
there with them.
saying goodbye to their mother,
Yes.
knowing that their mother's going to prison?
And they're not allowed to tell their mother.
Oh.
The mother is not allowed to tell the children
That she's going to.
that they're never going to get to see her again and all this and that.
Oh my gosh. And in New York, when a parent goes to jail, they actually sneak in there and the child attorney actually tells the child that goes behind a parent's back, a good parent, and tells them that a parent is going to jail. Which I think is disgusting, utterly, absolutely disgusting that you have to even tell a child that, let alone. Anyway, I don't even want to get into all that, but this is, I am floored right now to hear this. This is disgusting.
I'm around my grandchildren all the time, and I wasn't even allowed to go and visit them.
So
they-
you could,
they
could you
said-
not be a part of the farewell party either?
No, I wasn't even allowed
So you-
visiting them at all. They said they don't have grandparents visitation.
See, the law says that the next in kin would be grandparents' rights.
Yeah, that's what I always thought.
That is the absolute truth. Not
Yeah,
not
that's-
foster care people rights. Grandparent
Yeah.
blood rights. And so now at this point now you've applied for custody
Oh,
through
yeah.
the court, kangaroo court. Judge is falling asleep, nodding off. Okay, jerking his head and waking himself back up during court. What's happening in this court? How long is this handling? Because now we're in November of 2017. From 2015 now to 2017, you have not seen your grandchildren.
No.
Your daughter's in prison. Why is she in prison? Because she said she had no choice. She had to say she did this.
Well, she had a lawyer that,
Sucked.
yeah, a court-appointed lawyer, if that tells you anything.
I don't know why.
She had a court-appointed lawyer that more or less railroaded her.
Mm-hmm.
Told her, your best bet to do the plea,
Mm-hmm.
or you're looking at 6 to 8 years.
And how long does she have right now with this quote-unquote plea?
It was 1 to 3.
So right now she has 1 to 3. And
Yes.
do you know where she's at with that right now? Like, did they
She's
shorten it or?
Yeah, she gets a year. She gets out the end of January, but she's got a year of Vivital program to go through. Why didn't they put her through the Vivital program in the beginning? I don't know.
Then explain what the Vivital program
All right,
is.
my daughter turned to alcohol when all this took.
Missed that, so we do apologize for that intermission. We're going to continue with this interview right now, and Linda, I just want to ask you, just to kind of get everybody to where we are now. Let's talk a little bit about the doctor that you were telling me about, the child's arms, and then we're going to get into a little more detail about that as well. What happened with this doctor and so on.
Okay, I've got a statement which I didn't know we had until I went to the courthouse
Mm-hmm.
and got all the testimonies and what's the other thing they call it? The testimonies and
Did you get the transcripts? and
yeah, the
stuff like that?
transcripts,
Mhm.
the transcripts and the testimonies.
Mhm.
I go home and go searching through them all, and I find this statement in there from a Dr. Marvin Miller, stating that Jace is not child abuse nor neglect. It is a metabolic bone disease. And I
So-
keep going through the rest of the papers, and then I find a statement from the prosecuting attorney stating that he was denied to testify in court
This
because
doctor was denied to
this
testify
doctor
in
was
court.
because he was timed out. So my daughter's court-appointed lawyer did not
Take care of it.
take care of it in time.
Okay, and irregardless if he took care of it in time, this is an urgent situation right here. Your grandchildren have been taken away. Your daughter has been falsely accused. What that tells me is that if he has a metabolic disorder, when he fell, he broke both arms. So the fall may not have normally caused another child to break both arms.
No.
That didn't have some type of a metabolic issue related to the body. So that would be something that should be a key flag that should say, wait a second here, what's most important is children and family. What's most important? That's most important.
Yes.
So now we've got something that we've shown a dominoes effect of abuse to a family. You've got a daughter sitting in jail for something she did not do. Okay, you've got grandchildren that are away from your entire family, dismantled and disrupted an entire family's lives.
Yes.
You've got grandchildren who you haven't seen since 2015, now it's 2017. Instead of them getting right in there because somebody's saying, wait a minute, the logical thing to do is let's talk to this doctor, first of all. Let's get him on the stand and let's do a proper evidence-based trial, okay? And let's fix this mess. They're not doing that, are they?
No.
So, okay.
When the doctor was able to come and testify,
Okay.
that VIA video,
Mm-hmm.
they kept postponing court every time to turn around.
Mhm.
And then when they subpoenaed him again,
Mhm.
he couldn't appear because he had duties he had to do. So,
It kind of makes you wonder.
yes.
I mean, right away.
They had it all planned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What did you want to add anything to that, or did you?
I'm trying to listen to Linda. The doctor that they had was, he is a specialist in this, and he's from Dayton, Ohio.
Okay,
I don't know if you want me to mention his name. or
it's
not.
up to you.
Dr. Marvin Miller,
Dr. Marvin Miller. Mm-hmm.
Dayton Children's Hospital.
Okay, was that the first doctor that saw him, or is
No,
that one of
this
the
is the
specialists?
doctor that checked out the X-rays and said
Okay.
that it is not abuse or
Oh, that's
neglect.
right. That
Yeah.
it's not abuse or neglect. That's where we were going with that. It's not abuse or so it was a simple accident.
yes.
It's a simple accident that they have wreaked havoc on your family. So now let's go back to the part because you had made a phone call yourself, asking what was happening and what happened with that. You called. Who did you call? CPS.
I had talked to CPS and inquired about the boys to get them out of the system, and I was told that they had potential placement for the boys.
And when was this? What time frame was this approximately?
I know it was in the summer, so probably June,
Of
maybe.
17 or of 17, 2017.
May, June, something like
And
that.
they said they had potential placement. So have they been hopping from foster care to foster care that you know of, or you just don't know?
Yes, they have been
They have been hopping from foster care to foster together or separated?
together. I'm
You don't-
hoping and praying they're still together.
Okay.
Last I heard, they were still together.
Utterly disgusting, unbelievably. So that's all they basically told you. They kind of like that was it. Just they have placement for them. You don't even know what this placement means. Does it mean, what does it mean?
They just told me potential placement, so I assumed that they.
Well, later on, I was on this site and I seen the boys' picture on an adoption site. Up
You
for
did?
adoption. Yes, I
You
did.
did. And when was this around?
When was that?
I'm not sure. I think you have a picture of it.
It was right before they moved from their last foster.
Do you have their names, which are, say it again.
Jace.
Jason,
and
or
Colton
Jace and
Balcom.
Colton Balcom. Okay, now, you don't have any pictures of them with you? What we're gonna do is we're gonna insert photos. We're gonna have our editors insert these photos in for TV purposes, and I'm gonna just do this. If anybody, when we insert these pictures, sees these children and you know that you're going to try to adopt them, or if you have, please listen to this story because this has been illegally done. This is child trafficking. That is exactly what this is. So if you should see this, please contact me, okay? And we're going to see what we can do about this because this is unbelievably wrong on every level. Now your daughter, you don't know if your daughter has any access to her children in any way, phone calls or anything.
No.
Nothing, zero.
No,
They've just taken her out of the equation, put this poor woman in jail.
Yes.
I don't even know what to say, honestly. I don't even know what to say.
Now they did vaccinate the boys again.
This is another thing that they do.
Oh,
Love
yeah.
to vaccinate
Because
children.
they said Jace didn't have his vaccinations.
And,
And
so-
he did.
and
He
even if
was-
he didn't, that's nothing wrong with that. There's
He
actually
was
everything
at
right
his
with it.
doctor and got his vaccination 6 days before all this took place. And if he had all these
So this is a double
all these
vax.
broken bones, why didn't she notice it?
So this is a double vax, which is even worse to the immune system.
Oh, and I forgot to mention about the eye. My daughter was also accused of shaken baby syndrome.
Shaken baby syndrome occurs because of the DPT
Abuse.
shot. No,
Oh,
because of the DPT shot.
oh, really?
Mhm. There's not one case of shaken baby syndrome in Japan, and they don't do that shot. What does that tell you?
Wow.
And not that shaking a baby couldn't hurt a baby, because
Yeah.
it can. I'm not saying that it can't.
Well, they take Jace to a doctor in Logan, Ohio,
Mhm.
a eye doctor, a specialist for children. He ruled out the shaken baby syndrome and said Jace has cataracts.
Okay.
So CPS takes Jace to Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio,
Mhm.
and they perform surgery on the cataracts, and now Jace is blind in that eye.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Where are you now in court? Anything going on at this moment in court?
Waiting on the decision for the appellate court.
So you're in the appellate court.
Yes.
So you did
Yeah.
appeal the judge's decision.
My daughter keeps appealing it.
She keeps
And
appealing.
her
it. Yes.
lawyer's fighting for me.
Is fighting
Because
for
she
you.
knows
Mhm.
I filed for a motion to join third
Mhm.
party and also motion to adopt them.
Yeah.
And I have never been mentioned, and she wants to know why.
Right. Right. Okay. Because
Because
next of
this
kin
has
would be
been going on
grandparents.
from the beginning, yeah.
Yeah. No. This is
And
completely.
my name has never been.
And then you need to sue the crap out of them, both your daughter and you. You need to sue the living crap out of these people for what they've done. What was I going to say to you? Right now, as it stands, your daughter was going to be given how many years in jail?
6 to 8 years.
And because she had to sign and pretend that she did this, even though she didn't,
And it scared her, and she didn't want to do
Well,
8
you know-
years in prison, so she took the plea.
you're stuck between a
Because
rock and a hard place. And
Her
then you think,
boyfriend rolled on her and said that she did this abuse.
Oh.
So he wouldn't get in no trouble.
oh, I see, because they were accusing both
Because,
of them.
yeah, one of them better tell what happened, or they would both want to go
So
to
that's what
prison.
they do, and they divide everybody
Yep.
up. And now because she did that, the plea was what? How long is she in now?
1 to 3 years, but she's going to do 1 year and a year
Okay.
Vivital program.
Vivital, which, and like you said, they should have had her do that before.
Yes, before she went in there, because when she first went into prison,
Yeah.
she was sent to OSU
Mhm.
and was in the ICU
Mhm.
for 12 days because she had withdrawal so bad because she was an alcoholic.
So,
Because she turned to alcohol.
so she turned to alcohol.
Well, after she lost her children,
Mm-hmm.
she said,
This is not anything your daughter ever was
No,
doing
no,
before.
no.
Never
no,
a sober person.
no, she turned to
And
alcohol.
of course, that doesn't help her it surely does help them because they can go, oh look, but in
Yeah.
the meantime,
Oh, yeah.
and we have seen
Oh
this
yeah,
before.
because it was reported. Her boyfriend told that she was drinking and all this and that, and the prosecutors and all them they go
They
to
ran with it.
Kroger's to the liquor store and get the videos of my daughter going in. Now they're buying alcohol every day.
Wow, they really go crazy in this town. I mean, in this area. They're even worse than New York, which I didn't think anything was worse than New York until I seen West Virginia / Ohio. I don't have any words for you. My heart is breaking for this whole story, and I'm just going to continue to pray with your family that this all ends.
I pray every night.
Yeah.
Hoping my grandbabies get to come home one day.
Yeah, and I do believe that they will, because we have to just continue to forge forward and get them back. And get them back and pray that they do the right thing in the appellate court. At least give them to you. And your daughter will be out when? What's the date on that?
January the 31st,
Okay, it's the day after my birthday.
2018. But then she goes into a Vivital program for a year,
Okay.
which, like I said, don't make sense. They should have.
But that's a program that'll
Should've
keep her
said.
in. She actually has to live there, or it's just a program that they do.
I don't know for
visit.
sure if she's got to go and live in there or if she's
When
got
I hear this, it sickens me because I know personally, actually, but I also know all kinds of stories where there's actual drug addicts and alcoholics that they give children to. They just give them. Meanwhile, you got a good parent that's trying, to protect that child or children, and they let you continue this circus show that they call a court. But thank you for your story, really. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You guys have anything else you wanted to close off with, or
I think that's it. Just
okay? Well, thank
pray
you guys.
for me, everybody.
Yeah,
I
keep
want
those
my
prayers
grandbabies home.
Yeah, keep praying and keep believing, and we're gonna have an intermission now. We'll be having the next story.
I can't be silent anymore. I can't keep watching anymore. What's dear to me is dear to my God. I can't shed more tears, I know it's time to fight. It's time to remove the mask. For once, let us be honest. We parents will not step back. Our children deserve the best. Punished for protecting them. Where is the justice in all that? Our voices rise because our love is deep. Return the innocent, hear our hearts beat. Yeah, yeah. It's time to remove the mask. For once, let us be honest. We parents will not step back. Our children deserve the best. It's time to remove the mask. For once, let us be honest. We parents will not step back. Our children deserve the best. It's time to remove the mask. For once, let us be honest. We parents will not step back. Our children deserve the best.
Okay, so we're back again, and we're here. I'm here right now for Punish for Protecting with Brian Kinter and my co-host Missy McDonald. This is real exciting right now to have Brian here with us.
Thank
Who
you.
went through literally. You took a skateboard, you took a bike, you rollerbladed. You got a lot to get here tonight.
It took us a while. It took us a while. It was supposed to be a 2.5 hour trip, and we were on the road for better than 5.5 hours when we had another young man, Gideon, who is our saving grace tonight, who picked us up and brought us the last hour trip down. And we have another gentleman back in Nelsonville, West Virginia, or Nelsonville, Ohio, that's fixing our van right now. So, yeah, it was quite a journey.
Wow, but you got here and you were determined.
Yeah.
And it actually shows me that you're so determined because you're still kicking family court butt. And this actually kind of, to me, kind of shows the same kind of a picture where you're just going to continue to go to get to where you need to go, no matter what.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. I believe that we have to go after the judges. I believe that we have to begin criminal prosecutions against judges when they knowingly, intentionally, willfully violate somebody's rights. And for them to say that they are granted absolute immunity is an illusion, given that the U.S. Supreme Court has already established that there's no such thing as absolute immunity. Immunity, if anything, can only be limited or qualified and has to be determined upon the facts and the evidence presented at trial. But where do you go to get a trial when you're taking a judge to court? You know, the judge, no judge wants to judge another judge. It's just the reality of life.
And we've been trumping this message because everybody just says, oh, judicial immunity, and these attorneys will go, judicial immunity. And I even back then thought, how can that possibly be the case when a judge should be held, or any public servant, at a higher accountability than just the layperson? But you just said it, that the Supreme Court has ruled.
Well, if you take a look at how judicial immunity came to be in existence was in the Stumps versus Sparkman case. And in that case there, the judge had ordered Ms. Stump to be sterilized at the request of her mother. And she was a mentally handicapped individual. And they went on, and when she found out that she could no longer bear children because she thought that at 14 years of age she was being taken in for appendicitis, and she was actually going in so that they would make it impossible for her to have children.
Right.
So the judiciary, in a concerted effort to conceal the crime of which he committed against this young lady, granted him immunity. So then that immunity carried over. Our argument is that the court has no power, no judge has a power to write law, and there's never been a law, it's never been passed by the legislation that you have an absolute right to live in a privileged class, whereas anything that you can do, you're immune from. It's like me asking Melissa to come into the judge's chambers, and if I'm the judge and I rape her, and they say, well, I committed the offense when I was wearing a robe, so I'm immune.
Right,
you know?
right.
And I'm saying it's ignorance.
Do whatever you want with the robe on. Then if you come out into the world and you have the robe off, you can, you have to abide by the laws. That's just insane. It's highly criminal.
Yeah, well, it's discriminatory, you know, and we can't live in a society whereas we have two classes of people. Those that are expected, required, and demanded to give an account, but yet those that sit in a position of authority, such as a judge, we have to give no account. And I'm saying, how do we progress as a society if we allow that standard to continue to operate? It just won't happen. You know, judges have to be prosecuted, and I believe Don Rufty in North Carolina is a phenomenal individual. I believe Ron Branson initiated legislation years ago for jailing judges. I believe that when a judge violates your God-given constitutionally protected unalienable rights, that you should be able to have a remedy of recourse. And I believe that remedy of recourse has to be that there has to be filing suits against these judges.
Absolutely. I mean, every judge needs to be held accountable for their actions.
You know, I know that in our case, and when PBS did a documentary on our case called Court Screwed, and it's available on YouTube, and you can watch it and see it and things, but the judge was saying that, you know, she absolutely had the right to do what she did because she believed that she was operating for the best interest of the child. Well, the best interest of the child standard is an illusionary concept, okay? Simply because you say that it's in the best interest doesn't mean that it is in the best interest. And then it beckons the question is that who's judging our judges? Was the judge a victim of domestic violence? Was the judge raised by a single mother, a single father? You know, all the dynamics that went into their case. Now, like in our case, I went to the extent I brought in a group of private investigators to dig up my magistrate's past, my judge's past, the guardian ad litem, the psychologist, the psychiatrist, the therapist, because I thought it was only fair that we should all know everything about each other. You know, because we're not talking about commodities such as houses or cars. We're talking about our children.
Exactly.
And when you're given that responsibility to make a determination for what's in their best interest, how do I know what your motivation factors are to deriving at the proper conclusion? So there's a lot of things that's really changed. And we believe that, you know, when I was talking with Ted Fogg, and Ted, if you're listening, you know, you frustrate the hell out of me with some of the things that you do. I still love you, but, you know, tone it down a bit. I was talking with Ted about, you know, the fact that these judges and things, they escape this liability, oh puppy, because no other judge wants to hold them accountable. And we have to look back and say 2 years ago, we didn't have any of this. When I was going through this back in 2008, you could go online and do searches and things like that,
Right.
but nothing like it's out there now.
Right.
I mean, you can go on to YouTube or anywhere and you can find so much information. So more and more people are talking about the
Yes.
proliferation of abuse, and we all
Yes.
unanimously agree that abuse in any shape, form, or fashion is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But yet when it comes to judicial abuse, it's a taboo subject where nobody wants to talk about it because it involves a judge. And everybody has this misconception that judges are somehow, you know, little mini gods and that they can do no wrong. And as more and more
Yeah.
people are talking, we're beginning to realize that we're not alone. And so there's great power and great freedom in that knowledge
Yes.
of knowing that, you know, I'm not alone here. There's something obviously wrong. There's a defect, and that defect is that, you know, absolute power corrupts absolute. When you give a judge that power and that authority to rule into your life, and there's no oversight and no way for you to bring accountability for the egregious wrongs in which they've committed, we're on a slippery slope. So it's time that we have to really go after these judges, and I tell everybody, and I encourage everybody, sue your local judge.
Absolutely.
Sue them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we are doing, actually. We have a lot of lawsuits right now that I've been telling everybody that are being written as we speak against these judges, specifically in different states, and New York being one, West Virginia. You guys are going to get hit so hard, you have no idea. And boy, I mean, what a turnout today of people. Like, it's just been unbelievable. We still have more that we're not even going to be doing. But
And the next thing is too, though, is that the state will take an action, because the next thing that happens is that they'll come in and they'll try to nail you with sedition, because they're saying that you're trying to overthrow this branch. Well, the Constitution is clear and says that we have not only an obligation, but we have a duty and a right. You know, it's our responsibility to stand up in the face of adversity and call these things out. You know, and it's our job, because if not, what are we leaving for our children?
that's
That you just go to court and whatever a judge decides, even if it's egregiously wrong, that you have to accept it simply because it's delivered at the hands of a judge.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
Yeah.
insanity.
No, it isn't. Yeah.
It's absolute insanity.
And when you hear these stories, and you know, but when you hear these stories and you've been
Right.
watching all these stories and all these people and all these children being endangered and placed at risk and being abused, but just the mere fact of them being ripped from loving family members, just that alone, we should be having massive protests across this country. Like, people I don't think should even go to work. I think we should just be doing this because it's so severe. I don't know if they're
And I agree with
desensitized.
that.
I don't know what
Well, I think, Francisca, is that, you know, normally by the time you go through the court cycle and their process, you've been so battered, beaten,
Yeah.
and bruised that you're sitting there and you've been decimated. You don't have the financial
shocked.
resources to be able to take off. You know, the vast majority of the people don't, to be able to show up at like the Million Pound March or at the Whistleblower Summit and things. And they make it very inept for you to be able to make these events, because you're wrapped up in all this court nonsense
Litigation.
and all the litigation, and it's a day-to-day struggle just to survive. So it's a matter of attrition,
yeah.
and the court knows that. The court knows that if I can take away your wherewithal so that you can't fight, I'm going to win.
Yeah.
And that's the, you know, the problem. And it's like, you know, when everybody says that, oh, Mr. Kinter, you won, and I say, how do you win something that you should have never lost?
Right.
You know, and what did I win? I'm in debt $3 million plus. It's a day-to-day struggle every day to try to overcome all these challenges of life. And you're sitting there and you're saying, shouldn't I be made whole? And yesterday I was on the phone with Charles Paswick out in California, And Charles is keeping me abreast of what's happening out there with the CJP project, and that Joe Sweeney initiated out there, going after them. And you're saying, how do we have all these alleged safety mechanisms in place when the alleged safety mechanisms don't function and they don't work? They're just not working, and the reason they're not working is because there's no transparency. And we have to be open, we have to be honest, and we have to be able to say things no matter how wrong it is. As Martin Luther King said, sometimes we have to rip that bandage off and expose it with all of its ugliness. And that's where we're at with the court system. It's a very ugly, brutal system that's predicated upon a precept of an illusion for the best interests of the children, when the reality shows and the evidence clearly illuminates that it's all about economics.
Absolutely.
As long as we can keep feeding another brotherhood with a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a therapist, somebody else that will come in and solidify my illusion, then I'm okay with that illusion, because they've all agreed to it. And we're saying, no, it's time that the court be taken to court. That's what has to happen. The court has to be put on trial. And we believe that the facts and the evidence, I have 1,086 cases right now, that the facts and the evidence clearly substantiate and support our contention that the judiciary runs one of the largest, most well-funded, well-organized criminal racketeering organizations anywhere in the nation.
Now, we've been talking as a group in our meetings. We have a bunch of things that we have lined up, but we've been talking about doing like a national
Class action?
a class action, or like just against the Attorney General's office.
See, and
combining all of these cases together.
And,
How do you feel then?
well, I feel that, there's a possibility if you can get around certain issues. Now, in Ashcroft versus Ishbal, the Supreme Court had established that and when it comes to family law matters, that you cannot take it on a contingency basis. So then it's trying to get how do you get a grouping of people? Because one attorney is not going to be our saving grace. What's going to be our saving grace is the truth. And as long as that truth continues to move forward, but you have to have the resources to hire an arsenal or put a grouping of attorneys together, in my opinion, to be able to go after them. I think some of the people that's doing phenomenal work, like Connie Reguli and Melissa McDonald and the gentleman there in California that represented Deanna Fogarty Hayward, all of these people that have really set the stage for trying to bring about a change. And I'm saying, if there was a way to pull resources together to go after them, that's what I believe it's going to take. But then I question that, because as one that's been to the U.S. Supreme Court on numerous occasions, and the U.S. Supreme Court says that no pro se litigant can take their case before the U.S. Supreme Court, it ought to scare the hell out of everybody in the United States of America. Because what that says is it sends a signal and a message to the people that unless you can financially afford justice, don't even pursue it. Don't even pursue it.
But they don't have that's not legal to tell. That's not.
Well,
that's
if it's not legal, but if the court does it, who's going to take the court to court? And
Right.
that's a question. And that's one of the things that I was saying the other day when I was talking with Marty Oakley is that, Marty, I really truly believe that we have to move it into the world court. And I was talking with Zena Crenshaw. Zena Crenshaw is a brilliant, brilliant legal mind. And I'm very blessed to sit on the National Strategy Management Board with her, and saying that, I believe we have to go to the world court. In Brazil, they just had a major breakthrough there, saying that, the court system there, it was illegal. And we already have judges standing up now, and I can't name the judge, but there was a YouTube video that I seen the other day where a judge was saying that the domestic relation courts are unconstitutional because they're tribunals. They're not courts of law. They're just tribunals. So the question beckons then is that, how can we continually go through this cycle? And that's what it is, it's a cycle. Whereas once as you go to court, you're going in there looking for a remedy of relief, only to discover that you're going to be further victimized.
Right.
Only in a different degree, in a different format. They play on your emotions, and they predicate it upon giving custody, in my opinion, to whomever they think is not the party that's going to truly fight for their children. because the more that there's contentions, and the first order of business for the court is to create business for the court. So how do we do that? If I come in and I think, well, you're going to be the one that's going to fight for your children, then you're not going to get custody. No matter whether you are the best parent or the more fit parent or more appropriate parent, we're not going to give you custody because we're going to generate more income for ourselves.
And that's what I have a lot of parents, come at me, Brian, because they're saying, I have done nothing wrong. Not one thing. Why can't I have my kids? Why are they with such and such? Or where have they been put in foster care? That's been an ongoing question.
Well, one of the big arguments that I have there with people, or one of the big support things is that I tell everybody, listen, the state has a mandated duty, obligation, and responsibility to produce a finding by a clear and convincing standard of unfitness, abuse, or neglect before they can negate your rights and your access to your own children. How the hell can a judge sit there and say that you're not going to have access to your children when prior to that, prior to one party or the other initiating the process, you're one's mom and one's dad. It took both parents to create that child. I'll be damned if you're going to take and say, well, now let me just remove you out of the lives of that child. That's
But they do it. They do it every day.
Every day it's being
A
done.
judge in New York did it to me for 8 months. Removed me from a child that I raised from in here. And never was without. How does a judge sit there and make a decision like that? I've never done a drug in my life. I don't drink. I've never abused anybody. I don't have a criminal history. I have nothing on me. I advocate for others, and just go ahead and go, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go to bed tonight and sleep and wake up tomorrow like I've done nothing
Because
wrong.
the judge doesn't have a
Like
conscience.
I've done nothing
The
wrong.
judge doesn't have a conscience, and there's no who's going to hold the judge responsible. The judge can say,
Me.
I'll do. That's exactly right.
Me, and that's exactly who did hold his judge
The
responsible.
American
And I'm
people
not done
need to
cleaning
stand
the
up.
streets with him either.
Yeah, and I wouldn't. And I
No, I'm not.
applaud you on
Oh,
that,
that's Anthony
Francisco.
McGinty, by the way. That's
Yeah.
Judge Anthony McGinty of Ulster County Family Court in New York, just in case you guys want to know. My story comes out in 1 week, about 1 week, 2 weeks at the most. I have a book. And Anthony, I'm going to autograph one right to you.
Amen. Amen. And that's what I believe. I believe it's calling these people out and making them give an account for what it is, how you derive that to conclusion. On May 15th, 2008, my rights was terminated. Okay.
And that's 2008. This is a
2008.
great story.
2008, my rights was terminated. And when the magistrate come out of the room and she said, Mr. Kinter, effective as of today, we are terminating your rights. Predicated upon what? Based upon what the children said. What did the children say? We're under no obligation to tell you. I said, wait a minute. Unless I woke up in communist China,
Yeah,
this
that's
is
how you
still the
feel.
United States of America. Somebody damn well is going to tell me what the hell the allegation is that's being levied against me.
Yep.
Well, now, from 2008, the allegation, and I fought and I got that decision overturned, so I was able to have visitation rights. It was very estranged, very challenging all along the road of
So they
life.
did give visitation? No.
But it took a while. It took a
Okay.
while before we got to that. And here's what happened. In 2007, my ex had left with our handyman,
All right.
okay? And she went to Pennsylvania. 21 minutes after she was served with the custody paperwork that I filed in Ohio, she took my daughter to Children's Services in Lebanon County, Pennsylvania, and initiated an allegation that I touched my daughter's butt inappropriately.
Yeah.
Once as that allegation was cleared, the very same day that I was cleared of that allegation, the mother launched a second allegation. The second allegation was that I put my hand down my daughter's pants and put my finger in her vagina.
So first it was butt, and then it was
Went to,
further.
putting my hand down her pants and putting my finger in her vagina. Then it went from that to whereas I had asked my daughter to perform oral sex, to where I had asked, had my daughter, I wanted her to engage in
So wait,
sexual activity.
now, if I'm the person taking these reports, and first she comes in and she says, first I cut your fingernails. Now I went onto these extremes.
But it was different. It's
They didn't
different. She
see-
used different people. She used different people all along.
They're supposed to check all the old records, though.
The sheriff,
It's
Aaron
crazy.
Brown was the detective in Champaign County, said that the mother had always used mandated third-party reporters to do her bidding. That was his testimony. Okay, so from that it went to whereas I wanted my daughter to engage in sexual activity with two men, to whereas I had taken my penis and rubbed it against my daughter's anus. And then Judge Reisinger said all of the allegations was one and the same. And you sit there and you scratch your head and you'll say, how the hell do you derive at a conclusion that touching somebody's butt results in rubbing their penis against somebody's anus? That's just ignorance. So that's when I had decided at that point in my life, because it was very challenging. On July 29, 2011, I had my children for a visitation, and the mother had come down to my house, picked up the children prematurely, and come with two police officers from Springfield Police Department, making an allegation once again that I was being investigated for sexually abusing my children. Well, when they showed up, and I was saying, this is horseshit, okay? These orders, I have an order from the court that says I'm supposed to have access to my children until August the 1st, and didn't matter. They took my children. Little did I know that I would never see my children again for 17 months.
Oh.
Now, during that time, that 17 months though, the court, when we went back into courts, and the court had said that they were taking my rights from me and all this other crap again. So I took and I filed suit. And on March 27th, 2012, we brought in the U.S. Marshals and we shut down the trial court judge.
Yes.
Okay. And I had sued the judge for a tort claim action under 241 and 242 for $100 million.
Yep.
The judge, immediately after she was served, put a gag order on me and then sealed the record. So then I went back to the federal court and I filed an amended complaint saying, how the hell is this remotely possible?
Right.
You know, if I accuse you of a crime, Melissa, okay, where do you, as a judge, get the authority and the authenticity to be able to take and say, no, we don't want you to talk to nobody, and you're
Right.
not allowed to produce any of the evidence.
Right.
Okay? So it was just absolutely ignorance. Well, what I find amazing then is that then let's roll around to 2014. We go to a different court in a different county in front of a different judge, and in less than 7 minutes, I get full custody.
Okay, now
Okay.
stop for a second. Hold it. Let's go back a little bit, because of
Okay.
course my red flags are going up all over the place.
Mhm.
They're accusing you of all this garbage. They're about to take away your rights.
And the second time,
Okay, well, we're talking about the first time still. When
Oh.
you have the visit, this is during the time of this visit. If
no,
you,
my rights was terminated back
were
in
term-
2008.
but now you had visits, though.
In 2009.
You had visits.
Yes.
In 2009, and she starts this whole new thing with the police showing up.
Yes.
This is what I want to know right here.
Okay.
That was an unsupervised visit?
Oh yeah. It was
So why would they give you child molester, according to them?
Yeah,
Right? That you
yeah.
Why? So you're not going to be
Yeah.
a child molester on the times we give you the children.
Right.
But you only are one when we say you can't
When we-
have one.
Right.
I mean, just doesn't anybody else see
The
that?
logical.
Like, when you look at that and you're going,
Yeah. What the hell's going on here?
you know.
Well, see now in 2013.
So wouldn't they be held accountable for giving children to a child molester?
Well, that's exactly what I'm
I mean,
saying.
that's what
and
I
that's
would
what
say.
my daughter's doing right now. We're suing the state of Ohio through my daughter again because I'm saying, wait a minute, okay? No, you can't talk out both sides of your mouth.
Right,
Okay,
exactly.
either I was an abuser or I wasn't an abuser.
Yeah.
Okay, and if I was an abuser, then I should be incarcerated and be in jail.
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes.
and I think anybody would agree with that.
And why would
okay?
why would this be a problem anyway when we've got Lisa Knight's daughter, and
Yeah.
I've showed it, with a registered sex offender,
Yeah.
and she doesn't have access to her daughter. So what is it? Did we just change the rules as the wind blows that day? in
Well, at the
court?
discretion of the judge, and that's one of the biggest
Insanity.
problems that we have is that with them saying that there is judicial discretion, okay. And my question is that where does the line get crossed between judicial discretion and judicial abuse? And that was the question I took to the U.S. Supreme Court. There has to be a clear, distinctive point what constitutes discretion and what constitutes abuse, okay. Because if I come into your courtroom and I go like that, is that classified as discretion or was that classified as abuse? Okay? So there's so many different gray areas here, and I'm saying, listen, put me in front of a jury of my peers, okay?
Exactly.
Bring these people in and let them put on their own defense because it makes no logical explanation or common sense for why the hell you did what you did. 2013, we were ordered back into court. My case was still pending before the U.S. Supreme Court at that time. I had went in and I had asked that the judge Reisinger, L'Oreal Reisinger, in Champaign County would step down because she's a defendant in a $100 million lawsuit. Okay? I say, Your Honor, you can't possibly render a decision favorable to me without jeopardizing your standing in federal matters. Your Honor, you have to step down. Mr. Kinter, you've been to the Supreme Court Justice Maureen O'Connor, and she says that I'm fair and impartial. So I said, wait a minute, let me understand this. Simply because another judge
Right.
creates an illusion that you're fair and impartial,
Buddy,
draws a conclusion that I'm to believe that
Right.
you're fair and impartial,
Right.
doesn't change the fact or negate that you're still a defendant in a $100 million lawsuit.
Yeah.
You clearly have a pecuniary interest in
Of
the outcome of this
course.
case. You have to step down.
Of
No,
course.
I'm staying on the case. So then I say, well, Your Honor, I'd like to bring in my own parental alienation expert. Only if the courts accept this curricula vitae.
It's
So the
tough.
court, I bring in Dr. John Mason. The court accepts his curricula vitae. The day, then the mother is ordered to take the children to Dr. Mason. She doesn't complete the evaluation. So I take and I file a contempt action. The court finds her guilty
Oh, they
of
did.
not taking the children to the parental alienation expert. Then they continue the court date out. So the mother still hasn't completed the evaluation. I file for a continuance so that Dr. Mason can complete his evaluation, because in every child custody case, there's alienation. It just depends whether it's mild, moderate, or severe.
Well, it also depends on if it's the parent or the judge that's calling
Amen.
alienation.
Amen. And but in our case, when the John Mason, then the judge said that the continuance would not be granted, but that this would not prohibit Mr. Kinter's expert from testifying. So when he came into court, and we've got him on the stand, Dr. Mason, and my attorney asked him, for the record, could you tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, how would you rank the mother as an alienator? And he said, I would rank her as a 15. And my attorney says, how does that happen? And Dr. Mason said, this court, whether knowingly or unknowingly, has systematically aided and abetted in the alienation process.
That's right.
Bingo, exactly what I pled to in 2012 in my federal court
Do you know
case.
the only time
Okay.
they actually use the term parental alienation is when someone's trying to protect their children from abuse? Otherwise, how can a remedy be for alienation in a place when somebody's trying to protect children, not in your kind of a case? How can the remedy for that punishment for that parent be to alienate the children and alienate the parent? Where does that make any kind of logic?
But
at
it doesn't.
all?
It doesn't. And it doesn't
And
have
yet
to.
that's what they do.
Okay. And this is the problem, though, is that there's too much power
Yeah.
for these judges
Way
with
too
no
much power.
no oversight. Because here's the interesting thing. Now, this was the judge that said that she qualified Dr. Mason as an expert. Then, after he testified, the very next day, she issues an order and says, we find Dr. Mason no longer qualified for Champaign County purposes. Okay. Now, why would that be? Well, here's part of the reason. Champaign County was listed as one of the defendants in the $100 million tort claim that I filed against the county. Okay? So now I'm taking it, I'm saying, well, wait a minute. So I appeal this, and while my case is under appeal, and this is where it gets really interesting. So my case is under appeal, 2014 rolls around, I'm not getting access to my children. So I go to the court and I file for a contempt action. The court says, no, Mr. Kinter, you can't file here, you have to file in Hardin County. So I go to Hardin County because we transferred the case up there on November 18th, 2013. So I go to Hardin County says, nope, you can't file here because we haven't accepted jurisdiction. This is where it gets
So you're a
interesting.
man without an island.
Yeah, but here's the problem. In order for you to have a law, you have to have remedy of law through the law, or you don't have law. Okay? So I go back to the second district because my case is under appeal, and I say, where is the court of proper jurisdiction? We have to establish that. They come back and say, here, Champaign County retains jurisdiction for the enforcement of the previously issued parenting time order.
Okay.
So I have to go back to Champaign County. So on September the 9th, 2014, I go back to Champaign County. I file my contempt action, and 2 days later it's denied, saying that the case has been transferred to Hardin County. I go back to the second district and I say, issue a motion to mandate proceedings in Champaign County. This court has already clearly established that Champaign County is the court of proper jurisdiction. Tell the judge to do her damn job and schedule the proceedings. The second district comes back with a new order and says, Mr. Kinter's motion is not well taken. It appears the relief he seeks must come from Hardin County. So I go to Hardin County. Hardin County says, nope, can't file here. So I go back to the second district and I say, issue a motion to mandate proceedings in Hardin County. So on December the 8th, 2014, the Second District Court of Appeals puts out an order and says, yes, we do have the power to compel Hardin County to enforce the order. So on December the 9th, I shoot back and say, okay, that's just great that you guys say that you can do it. Now do it. Issue the damn order.
Yeah.
Tell Hardin County to schedule the proceedings. Let's go forward.
Yeah.
December the 10th, the Second District comes out with a new order and says, we do not have the power to compel Hardin County to enforce the previously issued part-time order. Well, wait a minute. As a matter of Public Law 104-193, as a condition for a state to receive Title IV money, the state must ensure the non-custodial parents' access to the children. Okay? So I go back and I file for a motion for reconsideration, illuminating them to the fact that they're violating my rights as well as the trial court. They come back and they say, denied. So then I file an in-bank review because now I've got two conflicting decisions from the same appellate body, one telling me that Champaign County must enforce my rights, then they're telling me nobody's going to enforce my rights.
But they want us to follow these.
Yeah, yeah.
They
So
want
then-
us to.
So then they deny it. They deny it. Okay. So then I go on up to the Ohio Supreme Court, and Supreme Court Justice Maureen O'Connor says that this court has elected not to accept jurisdiction to hear these matters. Well, wait a minute. You give me an order. I have no way to have the order enforced. So I take that order and I go all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court, I'm scheduled for oral arguments on, and I said 2014, it's 2013. I'm scheduled for oral arguments on July 15th, and on July 13th, the U.S. Supreme Court initiates Rule 28.8, which is codified as the Brian Kincher Rule, says no pro se litigant can take their case before the U.S. Supreme Court. So I'm saying, wake up, America, okay? Because this is all about, let me silence you. We're going to create an illusion of justice with no evidence to substantiate its claim. Because somebody has to give me an explanation as to why the court would give me an order defining my visitation rights and then not even follow through with ensuring that I got the rights in which you agreed that I'm supposed to have a right to have.
That's right.
It's ignorance.
The whole thing is.
It's ignorance.
The
The
whole
whole
thing is
damn
a
thing. It's a
circus
joke. It's a joke. It's casino justice. Come in, throw your money down, roll the dice. Maybe you win, maybe you lose. You know. But bottom line is, we're going to make some money from this stuff.
And you and I talked before this interview tonight, and it said the same thing. Knowing you walk into that court, knowing you won, knowing you lost, but even when you win, it's still an injustice.
Yep.
Because they're not doing anything in any kind of a legal manner or an ethical manner or a moral manner in any way, shape, or form.
Well, it's a tribunal. It's not a court of law.
It's a joke.
It's a tribunal. And that's what people need to realize, okay? They're not courts of law. They operate clearly on statutes and clearly on code. They don't operate on law, okay? Because then you have to go through and you have to follow all of these mandates and these asinine, ignorant things that they put into place. You go in there and they say, well, you know, Francisco, or we might think that you have an alcohol problem, so we think you need to have alcohol. Never an issue up until you go into court, and now all of a sudden you're mandated to do something and comply, and you're sitting there saying, why the hell would I have to comply with that? When the court said that I had to submit to a psychological evaluation, I did. And a number of times, okay? Finally, then, when it got to the point where, as I was being held in contempt for not going for another evaluation, and my saving grace was the judge herself, she would have had to comply with going for the psychological evaluation because she was a party to the case in my filing the federal action. So, you know, it was a way out for us, and our case has a lot of twists and a lot of turns, but, you know, I have full custody of my children, you know, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, how is this remotely possible that we can live in the greatest nation of all nations is the United States of America, but yet we do not want to acknowledge or accept the truth that sometimes judges make blunders. But I'm saying, but the problem is that these judges are lazy. They don't want to do their job. They don't. You're just a case. You're just a number. They don't take it personal. It's just, let's go through the motions and we'll give the appearance of justice with no evidence.
Some of them do take it personal. In my case, the judge took it personal because I reported him for 70 cases of child abuse prior to this happening.
Yeah.
He took it personal.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't recuse. And he wouldn't recuse.
Right.
Hello.
Well, and when you talk about
dare
recusal,
they?
now, Francisco, when you talk about recusal, and that was the interesting thing about our case, we have Judge Lori Reisinger that recused herself on February 20th, 2009 from our case, okay, due to a conflict of interest with Mr. Kincher. Both Judge Gilbert and myself must.
Sorry about that, guys. We got a little little issue right there, but we're back in this is part 2 with Brian Kinter. Where were we, Brian?
We were talking about the recusal.
Yeah.
And so, here we have Judge Lori Reisinger that had recused herself on February 20th, 2009 by her own acknowledgement, acknowledging that she had an issue with Brian Kinter, okay? And that both herself and Judge Gilbert must recuse themselves from this matter and hereby appointing John C. Newland. Well, then when she reappointed herself back into the case after John C. Newland went off for alcohol rehab, wonder why, okay? So we took and I went, I filed to the Ohio Supreme Court saying, how does one go about becoming unrecused? I mean, she openly acknowledged that she has a conflict of interest with me,
And now she's back.
So it's
Kind of
like,
like the dead. Dawn of the
oh
Dead.
my God, only worse than the dead because these people play hell and havoc in your life. So the Justice Maureen O'Connor comes back and says that no, the conflict truly wasn't with Brian Kinter. The conflict was with the judge's scheduling, and that's the reason why. But her precedent.
You know that by law, though, once they're off, they can't
No,
get back
they can't
on,
come
no
back.
matter
Right.
what it
But-
is.
But here's the problem.
It doesn't
What
happen.
happens when you have the court system? The law that's supposed to be upholding the law doesn't follow the law.
Well, they don't
And
follow
that's
the
the
law.
whole problem. That's why we're all
They
here.
don't follow
That
the
they
law.
don't follow the law. So then we take and we look at that right there and we're saying, well, wait a minute. Here we have the Supreme Court Justice Maureen O'Connor that's saying that even though she had signed her own recusal order, it's okay if she wants to come back on because clearly she doesn't have a conflict because she says she doesn't have a conflict. No facts to it, no evidence to it. It's just predicated upon this judge's position of writing in and saying, my conflict wasn't with Mr. Kinter, it was with my scheduling. Okay? So then you take and you look at that.
So wait, hold on. Did
Yeah.
you go from her to the other judge and then back to her again?
No, she was never on my case.
You
But
just never had. Okay.
I never had Judge Reisinger
Okay,
first, okay?
okay.
But Judge Reisinger, I had went to, when she was campaigning, I
Okay.
went to every one of her campaign things, and I was saying, what are you going to do to
Yeah.
protect those that are falsely accused?
Oh yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And then...
And the children. And the
right,
children.
and the children, absolutely. But she had signed her own recusal order saying that due to a conflict of interest, both Judge Gilbert and myself must recuse ourselves from that. This is why our case shows the inept ability, because the Supreme Court Justice Maureen O'Connor comes back with an order and she says, Judge Gilbert did a phenomenal job assisting Mr. Kinter in his case. Here's the problem. Judge Gilbert was never on our case. Judge Gilbert never heard one thing in our case. But we'll go through and we'll write it into the record.
Right.
And once it's written into the record, it becomes like it's fact, even though it's fiction, because Judge Gilbert was never on our case.
Right.
But because Maureen O'Connor, the Supreme Court Justice, says that he was on our case, then he's on our case. And it's like, this is horseshit. The whole system is, it's all just, you're just a number.
But
Let's just
when
go
you
through
think
it.
we've heard it all, there's another twist and turn.
Oh
in
my
some
God.
of the cases.
Yeah, and I mean, I take and I look at like, my friend Sandra Gazzini Rucky. Okay, Sam's case. Oh my God, just a bizarre. But every case that you hear
Hell
is
she's been
bizarre because it involves people's lives. It involves your children.
The
And I
fact-
keep
yeah.
saying that we're setting our children up from these things here for a pipeline to get them to the prisons. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
Okay, because once as we break down that family unit and we take away the nurturing, loving parent that's really going to advocate for the best interests of their children and we remove them, that child, the statistics and the data clearly
it's all clear.
supports how that they're going to have the recidivism rate and once as they become incarcerated and stuff, it's a downhill decline. We have to reverse the tables. And the way that we reverse the tables is that we begin to prosecute these judges that violate our rights. And I think that the only way that it's going to happen,
We
and I
have
like
to.
the idea
We
of the
have
class
to.
action,
We
I
have to.
question the practicality of it. But then I look and I say, what about like when they sued the tobacco industry? How come we don't all come together and sue the damn
Let's do it,
judiciary?
guys. Let's do it. Let's do it.
We're
ready
let's
to
sue
do
the
it.
judiciary.
But not just
you know?
the suing, not just the suing though.
Yeah.
We want to do a civil national arrest of the judges, and we can do that. We can exercise that right to arrest the judges and anybody that's a public servant.
And I agree with that. And then
You
here's
have
the
to do
question,
that.
though: how and while you're theoretically correct the practical application, because now Richard and Richard's a pretty big boy, so I could take him with me and, you know, throw him up there to the front line to take after these judges. But as soon as he goes in to arrest that judge, they're on the phone, and I never will forget
That's
when
not
them
how we
saying,
want to do it, though. We got to use a lot of brain power
Yeah,
for this one.
yeah,
This
and
is
you
a
have to get-
national day
but we have to get
All
the
of us
sheriffs
come
to do
out
their job.
in
The
mass.
sheriff is the greatest
That's
power
right.
in your neighborhood.
That's right.
Okay, and you have to educate the sheriff's department on their responsibilities to rein in this terror, and that's
right.
exactly what
and
it
it
is.
has to be done
It's
on the
terror.
same day.
It's terror. You know, because our judiciary has run unchecked.
No, and,
And-
that's it. Finito with this judiciary bullcrap. We're done with it.
Yeah,
We're done with
well, you know, I believe it was Patrick Henry that said that he feared, whereas there is no checks and balances on our judicial system, that one day we'll live under judicial tyranny, and that
it.
day's here
Yeah,
now.
it's been
We're
here.
here. We're here.
It's been
Yeah.
here. We've been so
Yeah.
blinded
We've
by
been
it
blinded.
that we actually thought we were going into a
Yeah.
court of law of justice, and
Yeah.
we thought we thought wrong.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing is that we've been systematically brainwashed from youth, believing that if you go to court and you tell the truth, the whole truth, and the whole
that's
truth,
it,
you
yeah.
can't help but be okay. You know, it's only once as you embark upon the journey do you discover just how corrupt and how twisted and demented the system is. Because you're walking in there and it's like you come out with that deer in the headlights look, you know, and it's like, what the hell just happened in there? How did they derive at
We all
that
ask the same
conclusion
question. What
when
the
there's
hell just
nothing
happened
there?
here?
Yeah, there's nothing there.
How can a person that's supposed to have a degree,
Some
some
wisdom.
kind of intelligence, has been to school, has been to law school, sit there in a position like this and assess a situation, make a decision in 5 seconds, first of all,
Yeah.
5 minutes, 2 minutes,
Yeah.
make a
And not knowing
decision
anything.
on an entire family. You've never walked into their home, you don't know them, you don't love them, you don't care about them, you've never had dinner with these people, you don't know anything about them,
Yep.
okay? And better yet, when you do have criminal backgrounds on parents, okay, and you're a judge, press a button, look on your computer, get their whole history. Why don't you just do that, just to make life easy for people,
Well,
so that you're not endangering
because
children
it's
and
not
placing
about
them at
making
risk.
life easy on people. It's about creating a system where it's predicated so that we can continue to balance our books. The state, every state, in my opinion, balances the books off of Title IV funding.
Yeah, we gotta
Okay.
talk about it.
And that's where I believe that the problem lies. Is that if we can remove the funding incentives to tear down the family unit, then we have a stronger probability of bringing about some real effective change.
We need
You
to
know.
cut them where it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
That's their pocket.
Yeah. Now Louis DeVault was able to take, and he took Franklin County, Ohio, to task, and cost him $128 million.
Yep.
Okay, that he got cut out of Franklin County Children's Services Unit because he proved his case. But here's a man that was wronged, and his children was wronged, and there has been no reparations for him. He hasn't been made whole. You know, he's lost everything, and he's working now numerous hours trying to rebuild what he once had that it should have never been taken from him to begin with. You
A
know,
lot of people have the misconception too that you must have did something wrong in order for CPS or whoever to come and get your kids.
well,
It's a
and
huge misconception.
But here's the question, and this is what I say to people, okay? If the courts are so honest, if they're so honest, explain to me why the hell it is that whenever you walk into a court, it says right on the door that you can have, there's no recording, okay? And you're not allowed, you know, I've talked with people all across this nation, all across the world, okay? And, you know, court transcripts have been altered, been changed, okay?
They type their own
And you're saying,
transcripts.
yeah, and you're saying, well, wait a minute, you know, we can capture right to the minute, minuscule second of anything in a football game or baseball game, but we can't put a freaking camera in
That's right.
in a
right.
courtroom.
That's
And whereas you go in and you say, I'm going to pay $20 to get a copy of this DVD because nothing, a picture is, it tells a story, you know? Because I was saying to the Second District Court of Appeals, there's no way to properly articulate things that happen and it doesn't translate over onto the record. I never will forget Judge Reisinger when she had asked my children in court, my 3-year-old son, none of my children was sworn in, and she said, do you want to see your father, Zachary? And she's sitting at the bench. Do you
Doing
want to
this?
see your father, Zachary?
Oh my God.
How do you translate that Okay.
Well, first
And-
of all, these child attorneys are a disgusting.
Oh,
they
it's-
can't get any more lower than the lowest form of life, worse than pond scum.
Well,
Because I mean,
and
what
when
they
you-
do,
yeah.
I mean, is beyond.
Michael Edwards, who is an attorney in Enon, Ohio. Okay. What a low life
They
sucking
are.
piece of
Oh, they
of
are.
fecal matter. Okay, this individual here, when I had taken and had my my parental rights, where my visiting time was separated stuff, the court wanted to give me visitation to my children, and I thought, no, this is unwise. You've accused me of all
Yeah,
these
right.
crimes, and all I'm going to do is continue this cycle. Let's get this parental alienation expert in here and let them decide, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then Michael Edwards sits and he tries to twist it and says, well, you know, you were offered visitation and you didn't want to take that visitation. But why would I want to take that visitation? Kelly,
Yeah.
excuse me, I apologize. Yeah, tell her to call Tony back and tell him that I'm in an interview. Why would you want to take and put me or my children in that position, whereas you want to give me access to my children and you're wanting to continue this poisoning of my children? I want it completely eliminated, okay? I want this proliferation of abuse to be brought to a halt. But then we can take and we go through with the court. Judge Lori Reisinger said that she was going to appoint Jacob Jeffries to our case as the guardian ad litem for the children. Now, we bring Jacob Jeffries in, and my attorney says, for the record, would you state your name and occupation? Jacob Jeffries, I'm an attorney at law. What's your role in this function? I'm a guardian ad litem. What's the role of a guardian ad litem? It's to protect the best interests of the children. My attorney says, can you define that? No, I can't. My attorney says, so let me understand
They don't
this.
even understand
Let
the
me
law.
understand
Yeah.
this, okay? The judge orders Mr. Kinter to pay you to perform a task that you can't define. Is that an accurate analysis? Oh,
Sure
it's
is.
not that. It's just not that simple. My attorney says, oh, let me break it down for you. He said, do you know why Mr. Kinter's rights was terminated? No, I do not. Do you know why they were reinstated? No, I do not. Now, here's somebody that's making a decision
For your kids.
for the best interest of my children.
Yeah, best interest.
Okay?
Best
But
interest.
yet, he doesn't know why my rights was terminated, doesn't know why they were reinstated. Okay? So then my attorney turns and he says, well, I don't
and
know about...
actually, and actually, neither do you.
No, right. And then my attorney turns and he says, well, I don't know about anybody else in this court, but to me, that reeks of extortion, blackmail,
Oh my
and
God,
coercion.
yeah.
The judge orders me to pay that man that is supposed to be there for the best interests of my children,
Right.
but yet he can't define what it is, but yet if I don't pay him, I get to go to jail, right?
Right.
Now tell me how the hell that's supposed to
And
be accurate.
It's absolutely sick.
You know,
it's
Yeah,
absolutely and utterly
but
sick.
it's all, and that's what I tell people. But you learn in life, but going on up the ladder to the next higher court, it's like going to the Gestapo and complaining about the prison guard beating your ass. Okay? There's no value to it because they're all corrupt.
Yes,
They're
they
all
are.
in bed together because once as a judge makes a decision,
Yeah.
it's about let's hold up the integrity of the judicial system. Well, first of all,
There is no
there's nothing to
integrity.
hold up.
There's nothing.
You're
no
absolutely
integrity.
right, Francisco. There's none. There's none. So that's a precept that is an illusion. But the court hangs their hat on that and says, well, the judge made a decision and she sat in the best position to adjudicate the matter. Well, then the question beckons is that what if the judge had a preconceived misconception, such as in your case? The judge sits there and says, well, I just don't like women. Okay? Or I just don't like men. Or you know what? I just don't like the way that you come into my courtroom today wearing
That
black.
is so true.
Okay?
It happens. Yeah.
Now,
Or I don't like that you don't like me for making
Yeah.
for abusing kids. How about that one?
Yeah. yeah,
So I'll play with you a little bit now.
yeah, and I'm gonna take and I'm gonna make sure that you understand that
Yeah, that
in
I'm the
my
boss.
court,
I'm
I'm
the
God.
boss, yeah.
I'm God, and that's one of the problems that we have. We've
It's
got
a big
all
problem.
these people
It's a
that.
God complex.
Yeah,
Very
Terrence Healy in Pennsylvania has done phenomenal work, and Dr. Richard Cordero up in New York. You know, all these phenomenal individuals, Dr. Carlos Rivera. You know, you're looking at these judges and you're saying they've all elevated themselves to this plateau where they believe that they're untouchable. And for the vast majority and the most part, they are. But I'm saying, no, the people are arising in the masses.
Oh yeah.
And now they're beginning to say, we're not going to tolerate this abuse. When you look at the statistics and you look at the data, and it shows that these judges You know, the John Gentry in Tennessee said that 100% of the pro se litigants' complaints against judges are dismissed in 37 states across this nation over a 12-year period of time. We have a problem.
We have a big problem.
Okay. It is mathematically an impracticality and an impossibility to have those many people making these types of complaints.
And
You know,
not be real.
And not one of them,
Right.
not one of them,
Yeah.
out of all thousands and thousands
That's
and
right.
thousands of cases over a 12-year period of time.
Yeah.
So then you look at what Chris Hallett's doing.
That's sneakier
Yeah,
than.
Yeah, and then Chris Hallett down there in Florida doing this thing on the breach of trust, because we're saying, wait a minute, where's our governmental officials, our legislators, our senators, our House of Representatives, our governors? Your job is to rein in this tear.
That's right.
Okay? You're to take and be the overseers, and when there's something going wrong, don't give us this BS excuse that, and that's the problem. Everybody passes the buck.
Oh my God, it drives me
Everybody
insane.
passes
When
the
you
buck.
look at them and you see that they're breathing, you can take a mirror and put it in front of their mouth. They actually are breathing when I go talk to them. They're really alive.
Yeah.
You
But
look
they're brain
them
dead.
You look them in the eyes. There's some. No, dude, you look them in the eyes.
Yep.
They are compassionate to you.
Oh,
yeah.
They get it. Oh yes, the system is broken, but I'm sorry, we have no jurisdiction here.
Yeah.
Really, but when I read what you're supposed to do for me,
Yeah.
as my attorney general, mine, not the judge's attorney general, when I read what you're supposed to do for me in public integrity regarding
Yeah.
public officials,
I'm wanting to understand,
violating
why
our
aren't you
rights,
doing it? Why
I
aren't you
say,
doing it?
How does it
Alright.
say this and yet it's not
Yeah.
your jurisdiction?
Mike DeWine,
Exactly.
Mike DeWine is the Attorney General for the state of Ohio. When I went to Mike DeWine's office and I said, listen, we have a real problem. It's systematic abuse being delivered at the hands of the judiciary, okay, which is fraud. Okay, there's fraud perpetrated upon the court, through the court, and by the court, okay? Somebody has to investigate it. He says, Mr. Kinter, the job of the Ohio Attorney General's office is to represent the state. So wait a minute, who represents the, because I thought your job was to represent the constituents of the state.
Absolutely.
Okay, no. Their job is to represent the state. So there is nobody, because now we no longer have public prosecutors. We have public defenders that will defend you, but not against an action taken by the state, and nobody to go after the state.
Oh, you mean
For that
public,
egregious
you mean
wrongs.
public pretenders.
Pretenders. Amen. Amen.
Let's get these
Yeah.
words right.
Yeah, but I think those of us that's been in the movement long enough know the word and understand it. But it's a proliferation of abuse, and nobody wants to talk about it. It's a taboo subject, you know. And when we went down to Rand Paul's office, and I was blessed to have Connie Reguli there, and so many wonderful people that showed up and things like that. Rosa Dratz came down and things, and I'm saying, listen, okay, you people are either going to do your jobs or somebody's going to replace you. Okay, that's just the realities of life. But the problem is that we're now reaching critical mass. We can't wait for the elections to roll around.
No.
2
Or
years,
next
3
year's-
years,
or
4
next
years,
year's
or
March.
next week.
I mean, as much as I
yeah.
love it, I'm happy
Amen.
for it. We can't wait till next year's
Yeah,
March.
we have to take an
This is
action
now.
This is now. Every day, children are being systematically abused
That's right.
and violated
And
at the hands of the judiciary,
Right.
and nobody's given an account for as to
No,
why.
They need to.
Okay.
That's the bottom line.
Cole Stewart took and launched a case in Arizona, whereas he had made a claim saying that there was 3,700 children that was missing off of the rolls from the registers there of children that were involved in CPS cases. And the court comes back and says that, you know, was it 3,700 children or is it just 3,700 names? Either way, it's a dynamic problem. One way is only worse than the other. And here's my closing statements here, because I have to make a couple of phone calls. But is that the court system has been very, very well versed in feeding you a minutia sandwich and telling you to regurgitate that it's peanut butter. Okay? And my argument is that don't shove shit down my throat and tell me to come back and say that you're absolutely right because you're a judge, and telling me that I should say it's peanut butter because you say it's peanut butter when I knowingly know that it's shit. If it's shit, it's shit. You judges have been violating people left and right for years. This proliferation of abuse is going on, and it has to change. And I believe that now is the time. I believe that we have to rise up in masses, and we have to be able to say, listen, don't look at my case as an isolated incident. but open your eyes to the magnitude and look at the documentation that's been gathered over all these states, over all these people. There's a commonality here, and the commonality is our love for our children. And we're all brought together because of that love for our kids, saying that we don't want to be here. I didn't want to make the journey down here and have the experience that I had, but I needed to because of the love that I have for my children. And I tell my children all the time is that, listen, the goal is to make a difference so that we don't allow you to have to be inflicted with the same hell and torment and pain in which we've had to face.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
you shouldn't be punished for being a parent.
No, you shouldn't.
Okay?
No, you shouldn't be.
And
you shouldn't be punished for being a child either. And
Amen.
That's what
Amen.
They're doing.
And that's the other side of the coin is that, you know, Ira Scott has phenomenal information there on the ACE studies.
That's right.
Okay? And you look at how this stuff here, whereas these types of cases, especially in high conflict cases, that it has a far-reaching effect that goes into children's lives until they're in their 40s and 50s.
Oh yeah.
You know?
It shortens the
And it's
lifespan.
something, yeah.
It actually shortens the lifespan. It changes the brain structure. It causes addiction. It causes all kinds of problems.
Well, it's leaving the
it's
child for
utter
what?
abuse.
What
It's
happened
utter
to my
abuse.
parent?
Uh-huh.
What happened?
You've
You
just
know?
removed the only stability they know, and in a broken family, you want to keep that stability even stronger.
Yeah.
You want to keep those boundaries, that order, and then the judges just screw everything up.
Yeah.
They screw everything up, and they need to be held. They need to be held liable for what they're doing. They need to go to jail because that's
Well, that's where
what
we're
they're
at.
doing is treason, and they do not belong sitting in a position where we're paying taxes so that they can continue to abuse families all over the
Yeah,
country.
to destroy the family
It's
unit.
just wrong.
And that's one of the things, Franciscus, and I really believe that, you know, and when I was talking with Zena, we need to move into the world court. There has to be, and perhaps that's what we need to do. Maybe all of us need to band together and file in the world court and saying, listen, we've been victimized systematically by a system that's created on a precept of justice.
Yeah.
But all we're asking you to do is take an independent view
Yeah.
and look at the facts and the evidence and tell us whether or not we've been violated.
Well, and I want to just close with this too. You're fighting in the midst of it right now. You're
Absolutely.
fighting hard
Yes.
in the midst of it, and you're helping other people while you're going through hell.
Right.
You did the same thing, and you did it for a number of years.
Yep.
I did it, and I probably did the most work I've ever done in the past years. In the 8 months that he was in danger, my child. Okay, so you fight while you're in the battle because that's when you're going to get the most, I believe, done, most accomplished. Because you're fighting out of what Brian just got done saying. You're fighting out of that place of love, and you're fighting with something that is not going to fail. You have to go forward. So some people don't want to get out of bed in the morning, but you don't have an excuse because look at the three of us. You don't have an excuse. It's like there's got to come a time that you shake yourself off, you cry, you do what you got to do, but you get your asses up out of that bed and you go fight and you do what you have to do for your children. Period.
Yeah.
And not just your children, but then when you get them back, you continue to fight now for your neighbor's children.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
self-pity is a commodity that
you
people can't afford.
You
They can't
we
afford
We
it.
don't have time for that.
Yeah,
I mean, really.
you have to realize that you're in a battle.
Yeah.
Okay, and in a battle, it's war. And when you're in that war, you don't have time to sit there and say, "Oh, woe is me." You know, I have to pick things up. I have to go back, and we have to keep fighting because our children are suffering,
Absolutely.
and it has to change.
It
So,
has to change, and we're going to make it change. We're going to make it change.
amen.
So thank you, Brian. By the way, I love you, Brian. You're
I love
awesome.
you. I love you.
And my name is
Yeah.
Francesca.
Thanks.
So thank you, Missy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody. This is it for this evening. We do have a couple more, but we're not going to do them tonight. We will get them on through a Zoom meeting soon. It was West Virginia and Ohio. Boy, I didn't expect this. Is all I got to say. Thank you, guys. Have a great. Way down. And you're live with Brian Kinder and Gideon. Go ahead. What's up here?
Okay, hey, we wanted to give you all a big update about the saving grace. Gideon took and rescued us today. First time we ever met him, 19-year-old young man. Car broke down, supposed to be a 2.5-hour trip. 5 hours into the trip, still hadn't made it but an hour and a half into the trip. And it kept breaking down. This young man picked us up, brought us the rest of the way down here, and he's been a godsend and just an awesome inspiration.
Yeah.
So when you see Gideon, and Gideon, you say that your screen name out there is...
Austin and Ellie.
That says Warriors.
Yeah, God's Almighty Warrior.
God's almighty warrior.
So it was a welcome blessing. You
God's
know, and I keep telling
almighty
everybody, listen,
warriors
God's
because
in control.
Stephen Curry was in
God
him.
is. And man, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else right now because like I always love to lend helping hands, especially in God. He will put stuff in front of you and he will lead you to wherever he needs you to be.
That's
so just
right.
know, trust in
Amen.
your faith, trust in your heart, and good things can come out of it. Always lead from your heart. Don't lead from anything else. Because if it's from the heart, it will be natural. And I'm so honored to be in your presence. I'm so honored to be a part of this movement right now because it's really powerful. And I just want you to say, go back and watch the part 1 and part 2 of the live streams because you will learn a lot from it.
Thank you so much, Gideon. You are a true angel and a blessing.
And let's not forget.
And don't forget, we have a football player here that's a complete and total comedian. And he is a comedian. Matter of fact, turn around, Christian, say hello. Oh gosh, everybody. Well, we're having fun, so I'm going to hang up now. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. Nope, he's very shy.
Seriously, I appreciate you.
God bless you guys.